G'day guys, Mackie with the Outer Circle, and today I want to review Book 7 of the Horus Heresy game system. Before I start this review, a quick warning. Those who are new to this channel, you may not be aware of it, but this channel is renowned for its salt. And basically that just means giving an opinion that's anything other than shining, and also an opinion that uses mean words, like front bum, ding dong, and shit cunt. So, if you don't like honest opinions, actual facts, and mean words, just walk away. No harm will come to you if you just walk away. Now, in order to review the last book in the Horus Heresy game series from Forge World, I have to look into the troubled development behind Book 7, Inferno. Now, I'm not going to hold my punches, guys. This is going to be a rough one. Back in September of 2012, Forge World released the first book in their Horus Heresy game range, a complete bolt from the blue called Betrayal. This wonderful book ushered in the age of official Horus Heresy gaming, something which many of us who'd played fan versions of the game for years were really excited for. This book seemed to me like an odd place to start, as chronologically the timeline began with the burning of Prospero. But then you think about it, well, there was already a lot of work to do just to fully realise basic legions, let alone specialist sculpts like the Sisters of Silence or the Custodians. So I figure, okay, maybe Prospero will be book 2. You get the basic stuff out of the way with the first book and then you move on, right? Wrong. And you know what? I was probably rightfully wrong. So, with 2020 hindsight, I can say, yeah, you know what? Not the best idea to do Prospero as book 2. Anyway, just one Primarch, a couple of units, and a lot of super heavies later, we get to 2013. And what happens in 2013? Well, a full year later, we finally get the Horus Heresy Weekender, which leads up to Book 2. After a hard year of diligent work, Forge World managed to bring us Book 2, and apparently, according to the late Alan Bly, it was actually written simultaneously with Book 3. This actually gave them a really good set of balance, and they were really good books. Strangely though, for two books that were written at the same time, it took another 6 months for Book 3 to release. At this time we all learned that Prospero would be Book 4, and that after the first trilogy was done, they would release another trilogy. There was a specific slide released talking all about what's next, and it was displayed at several events and open days. This slide detailed that Prospero, Calth, and Cygnus would be the focus of the next 3 books. Alright, cool. Can't wait for the next book, 6 months time, we're going to get Prospero, right? And here comes the spanner in the works. 7th edition 40k is released the week after Horus Heresy Book 3. Now, for me, this was a dead ship move if ever you saw one, because it fucked a lot of things, especially units in the book that was just released a week earlier. Even better, Imperial Knights were also released at this time, meaning there were now these new shiny toys that needed inclusion in the game, and a whole bunch of just god-awful psychic rules that were forcibly inserted into the game. Seriously, it cannot be understated what a dick move this was, nor can the sheer level of fuckwittery required to produce such a terrible set of rules, and think that they were good, be truly appreciated. Now, long short of it was, Prospero was now doomed. This time it wasn't the Space Wolves that ruined Prospero. It was having to write an entirely new set of rules based around the bastardized fantasy magic battle phase. When your book revolves around psychers and psychic denial, that's a big deal. Now, I have to interject here with my own thoughts from the time, which to me ring even clearer now. I don't think Forge World was ready. Even if 7th didn't change the psychic phase, it took another almost 4 years before Custodes and Sisters models would release, and it was another 3 years before Thousand Suns or Space Wolves would be seen. If the book really was intended for release 5 months after Book 3, surely these kits would have been ready in some capacity, right? Otherwise, that's an incredibly tight development cycle. What I'm getting at here is, I think it was all an excuse that they were always going to release Prospero later. Forge World was behind and it showed. They had a mere 3 Primarchs to show for 2 years of solid work. and the legions were still missing a plethora of units, thanks to Forge World's priorities being based less on providing the right models for their game that they chose to release, and instead were rather focused on releasing super heavy unit after super heavy unit, a trend which sadly continues to this day. So, next came Book 4, a placeholder book, which added the Imperial Knights, aka more super heavy units, into the game, and the Solar Auxilia, a small and elite army of not Marines. The big selling point here was the campaign system and the fact that Forge World really only had to make about 5 units for the whole army, making a product which they could quickly fill up a release schedule with. After that, the Ultramarines got their day in the sun, in an actually really good book. And, okay, time for Book 6. Okay, finally, here comes Prospero, and it's another campaign book. Book 6, the original red-headed stepchild. The most vanilla paced, the most bland heresy book. It gave us exciting rules for the Knights Errant, Black Shields, Shattered Legions, more Rites of War, and basically no units that were new or unique or interesting. Instead, it's a lazy book, and I mean a lazy book. Concerned only with campaign systems and writing rules for models Forge World didn't have to make and never intends to make. Now, this sounds really harsh, probably because it is, but this is in comparison to what had preceded it. To this point, Forge World had had 5 wins with 5 books, for me personally. Book 4 may have been a stopgap, but it was a masterful stopgap, and it did a lot of good for all the shit I hang on it. Book 6, on the other hand, was a bit of a downgrade, and the salt in the wound is that this was what Prospero was pushed back for yet again. All of this troubled history leads us to Book 7, Inferno, a book 5 years in development hell, hit by edition changes, meta evolutions, and the typical power creep that every Games Workshop game sees. What would the results be? We were told things like, it's the biggest book yet, the most thoroughly play-tested book, and something we've spent so long working on because we wanted to get it right. But there are warning signs. Alan Bligh was really ill by this point. He had been for some time, and sadly he passed away just prior to the release of the book. He was not able to put the dedication into it that he did for Book 1, and I'm totally understanding of that. But the team around him, do I cut them slack? Well, yes. Their friend and colleague was in a bad way, and that is always going to have an effect on your product. I get this, I've lived this. But do you just say, good enough, and release a faulty product? You see, that's where I draw the line with my empathy. If they said, Alan has passed away, we want to delay the book for 6 months and continue work on it, we'd be having a different conversation quite possibly right now. But instead, we need to actually review the book we got. The book is a work of art. The front cover, showing burning ruins of a once proud nation, evil furries crawling all over it with their dirty paws. Inside the book, each chapter of the story shows the symbols of the Thousand Suns slowly corrupting into demonic forms as the battle wages. That's pretty subtle, but really awesome stuff. The pages feature cool imagery of Prospero, with Marines dueling amidst... Wait a minute. Those are tourists! Oh, for fuck's sake. Who edited this book? Okay, Maka, it's not too bad. Keep going. The story is rich, telling a tale spanning a number of years from prior to the Council of Nicaea right through to the heresy itself. They eventually end the story with the disappearance of the Suns after Magnus duels Russ. It then moves into the history of the two legions, their birth, their Primarchs, the usual fluff you'd expect. Both are really solid, and the notable battles do a really good job of describing the way they fought their wars, the Thousand Suns using their power and knowledge and diplomacy to win their battles, but also their arrogance is shown, trying to awe their enemies and show off just as much as actually achieving their goals. The Wolves, on the other hand, their ferocity sharpened and tamed. They're like a beast, always ready to lunge forward and tear out their enemies' throats. But they're restrained, waiting for the right moment before they unleash their primal fury. Again, it's bloody good reading. Then we reach the Custodians and the Sisters of Silence. These chapters are actually rather bland in comparison to what we've already seen. More focused on talking about how powerful they are in the case of Custodians, or just random facts about the Sisters, but not really going too deep into their history. Is it bad? No, not at all. But I kind of wanted more than just who knows how the Emperor created them, or what are they truly capable of. It's probably just the weakest and most mediocre part of the fluff for me personally. Lastly, we look at the Forge World of Zauer card, which is actually really interesting, well worth the read in my opinion, and the Auto Sinister. Zauer card is cool because rather than a Mechanicus Forge World bristling with firepower and cool buildings and archaeotech, no, Zauer card the opposite. They're the ultimate innovators, marooned on a death world in the Age of Strife, and they made the most of it, creating a unique set of units and allowing them to overcome not only their planet but even colonize other worlds. It's kind of like what would happen, I guess, if you stranded a half-robot Bear Grylls on a death world. Or in Northern Australia, whatever. Auto Sinister, on the other hand, is a bit of a, huh? What? Thing. Because the only people who had a Titan on the ground during the Siege of Prospero was the Thousand Sons themselves. But now Psi Titans, well, they're there too. Because reasons. The other weird thing is that the other side gets them, not the Thousand Sons. They're not the ones using the Psychic Titans. No, it's the Legio Custodes and the Space Wolves. What were these reasons? Poor, very poor basically. To fight wizards you need wizards, yada yada. But in every other book written in the Heresy, Titans take many, many hours to bring to battle. And Prospero was over really quickly. Really, really quickly. Those Titans never would have got the chance to even get out of their ships to fight, let alone to participate in, well, not the opening phases of the battle, but basically close to. It's a retcon, and whilst not on a Matt Ward level, it's kind of a shitty retcon. I don't hate it, I just hate the implementation of it, and the marvellous disregard for their own lore shown by the inclusion of Psi Titans in this battle in this way is freakishly interesting to me. So then we come to the campaign system. It's a generic campaign like every book has. The missions are fine, the rules work, nothing really stands out as worthy of mentioning here. It's just a good thematic set of missions for those who want to reenact the Prospero Siege, which I may just end up doing with my friend Eddie. He has about 13,000 points of wolves, which are painted much better than my Thousand Sons, and I've over 10,000 points of Thousand Sons, and they're not half bad either, so yeah, we can totally do this. Then it happens. You get to the Legion rules. Oh boy, what a clusterfuck. Missing war gear, missing rules, incorrectly named weapons, being called one thing on one page, something quite different on the next, literally the next page. Unclear or obtuse wording, rules which conflict with existing ones in other books. Alright, examples are needed here. First example. Thousand Sons must have a Psyker as their warlord. Okay, perfectly fine if you're the primary detachment. But what if you try and ally to someone else, such as the Mechanicum, Solar Auxilia, Imperial Militia, Imperial Knights, Talons of the Emperor? Well, you can't ally to any of them if they're the primary detachment, because they don't have any Psyker units capable of being a warlord. This is in marked contrast to the Allies matrix, which says you can ally with all of these factions. Even better, armies like the Night Lords or Death Guard, who really, really don't like the Thousand Sons, yeah, you can ally to them, even to characters like Callus Typhon and Sevatar, which I think is really ironic, even if it is as worst case allies. Speaking of allies, the Talons of the Emperor aren't even on the Allies matrix. I've seen people use Horus bodyguarded by Custodes because people are using the Imperial Army ally slot to justify it. Is it a douche move? Yes, but it's hilarious at least. What about war gear? Okay, Custodians are missing the Misericordia, a war gear item which most of their units have. What about Power Lancers on their bikes? No rules for those either. Some units, like their Dreadnoughts, have a two-handed spear and yet count as having 3 close combat weapons. Apparently they hold the lance between their knees or something and swing it like a big dick at their enemies whilst flailing about with their fists. You get the idea, it's a shit fight. The custodians are widely agreed to be overpowered. I've harped on about it in enough videos, and we all knew it when we saw the rules. The debate, the arguing, mostly goes back and forth over how overpowered they are. I think the points penalty of perhaps 25 to 50% helps to balance them a lot, but if you include Sisters of Silence in the army who are actually really well balanced, then it basically fucks them over, so no happy medium. Also, the shield captains and tribunes are the most broken things in 30k until the next 3 units. First, the side titans are OP, but if you're using a warlord in 30k, you're probably rich enough to buy new friends. I know how to kill them with a unit which can't even hurt it in just one turn, and they cost about 1/30th of the points, which is hilarious, and they're from the same army list, which is irony all round. Yes, killing a titan with a unit that can't hurt it. It is possible. What about the Primarchs, the capping piece on the pyramid of poor design choices? They are both bizarre, with Magnus being strong as hell, and very well balanced, until you see his Mind Wrath rule, which allows him to channel powers more destructive than CS Godo's writing. The ability to de-weapon hit every single enemy model within 18 inches is just swell, and of course Biomancy on a model with most stats already in the 6s and 7s is just fucking rude. If you bumped his points up by at least 50 points and made his Mind Wrath a once per game rule, I'd say he'd be pretty balanced, but as he is in the hands of a win-at-all-cost player, he is completely and utterly fucking broken. Oh, but surely Lehman Russ is fine. No, he's not. He's just as bad, but in different ways. Try and reenact the Night of the Wolf, where he fights Angron and loses the 1v1, only to make the point that his army has his back and Angron's doesn't. Yeah, the little wolf fans all come out at this point screaming in my ears something about best Primarch or some shit and letting Angron win, but yeah, they do that every time, even when the lion knocks the cunt out too. Wolf fans can be insufferable like that, just ignore them. Totally unlike the superior Thousand Suns master race like myself. So, how is it that he can beat a Primarch who has ridiculous amounts of attacks at high weapon skill like Angron? Well, first, he has armor that makes it almost impossible to fucking hit him. Most things will be lucky to hit him on a 6 thanks to his flat -2 to all hit rolls against him, combined with a weapon skill of 9. Yes, anything with a weapon skill of 4 or less literally cannot hit him in base to base. Every time he wounds a model, not written as after saves, but when they suffer a wound, which means before you save, they also take an additional D3 wounds. He has 6 attacks base, and if they all hit and they all wound, he can potentially do 24 wounds before you get a chance to roll a save. Unlikely, but still broken as fuck. And when most of the wounds, or most wound models in 30k only have 7 wounds, it's entirely doable to just kill them straight away. This bastard is so overpowered, he needed 3 pages in the book to contain his girth. So, that takes us to the end of the book. If book 6 is a red-headed stepchild, book 7 is a turd. It's a beautiful turd, but it's highly flawed. It is a book which starts out strong and slowly degrades page by page until by the end of it, you're there going, man, that was disappointing. After 6 years of waiting, this is what we got. Now, should you buy it? If you're collecting the Horus Heresy books, then yes. Sure, the whole back half is cancer, but since black books have a shelf life of around about as long as it takes Forge World to make a new red book, well, the rules get outdated anyway. I can't use books 1 to 3 currently because they're built for 6th edition. And if I'm still happy with those books, despite the fact I clearly can't use any of the rules in them, then I would be a gigantic hypocrite to hate this book too. The book itself just failed on landing, and that's the actual disappointing part. Book 7 should serve as an example to Forge World of what not to do. The next 2 books fill me with trepidation, because as time has gone on, the Heresy books are taking longer and longer to make, and they're dropping in quality despite the fact they're taking longer. If I was a Dark Angels player right now, I'd be really fucking worried. Anyway, That's my no-holds-barred review of Book 7. Yeah, I stray off topic, had a couple little points there, pointing out the idiocy of things, but, well, this stuff was all going around at the same time as the development cycle of this book. It's all a factor. Every botched decision, every rules imbalance, every book that gets pushed out, it has an impact, and this is the final product. A disappointing product. Anyway, leave me your thoughts and feedback below. Thank you all for watching the episode, and I'll see you all next time.